Miss Katie Murray, welcome to the Find Your Balance podcast.
Thank you, Mads.
Thanks for coming up to the cabin today. It's your first time up here.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. What a day to pick as well, to come out in the countryside.
I know, beautiful and sunny.
Yeah.
This is your third time on our podcast, right?
I know. Do I get some kind of frequent shopper card? Like when I leave today, I get something surely.
Yeah, well, you've just got the most gold stars for the most appearances on Find Your Balance.
Yeah. I'll take it.
So your very first podcast episode with us was when you were doing the program.
Yeah.
And we basically were talking about how a mum of three transformed her health and wellness routine. And you had a really great physical transformation in your first challenge as well. So we were kind of talking about that. And from there, in that podcast, I mentioned, wow, you should be a coach. And then the next episode you came on, you were employed as a coach with BBM. So
yeah.
Very exciting times. Sonny has just jumped off the bed to give Katie his new toy, which is a croissant.
Bless. I've got my little companion support dog here.
Sonny actually looks like a croissant. That's why I got him that toy, because he's the same colour and everything. So
I'm going to try really hard to stay focused on you today, but you've put a very challenging distraction in front of me.
Well, babe, this is my podcast and
That's
I'm the
right.
queen of getting distracted. So
actually, it's Sunny's right now.
It's all welcome. So I want to start the episode off just by giving you a huge thank you for everything that you've done for BBM in the past year. Your role as the BBM mindset coach is to support women through hurdles and basically be a massive hype girl to them, give people strategies on how to break through cycles or, you know, deal with hard things that they're dealing with so that they can live a fulfilling and full, confident life, which is just so beautiful. So I just want to say thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you. But it is just such an honor. You've thanked me obviously lots of times before, but it honestly is the greatest honor and such a privilege to be able to step as a group coach to the entire BBM community, but also to be able to do one-on-one work with people and to allow them a safe space to be able to be vulnerable and tell their story and me be able to, in some small ways, support them through their journey. So, yeah. Thank you. But it's an honor.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I just feel like you're born for this role and it feels very much like it's your purpose in life is to help other people. So it's good to see you living out your life's mission.
Yeah.
It's great. So today we're going to be talking about self-sabotaging cycles, what they are, what causes a self-sabotaging cycle and strategies for breaking through them.
Yeah.
So you wanted to give a bit of a trigger warning and a bit of a...
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important for us to understand that, all of us may have at times experienced behaviours that align with self-sabotage. However, where things originate from could be quite traumatic. And so I might very briefly touch on those points today. Some of them might talk about unhealthy relationships or childhood trauma. I won't be giving any kind of specifics in regards to them, so I hope it's not too triggering. But I did want to kind of add something at the start that this podcast is about personal development and growth in terms of your mindset, but it's certainly not in any way intended to be mental health support for you. And if you do feel like after this podcast that you need additional supports, then I would encourage anyone that's listening or watching it that they should engage support from their GP or Beyond Blue, and you might be able to link the Beyond Blue contacts for people to reach out. I just think it's really important that we understand that this is generic advice, talking about non-specific kind of case scenarios and examples. And I hope that it resonates with you, but not to the point that it can upset some people.
Totally. And we know a lot of people listen to our podcast for nutrition advice and nutrition education. And self-sabotaging cycles mixed with nutrition. We know there can be, triggers for eating disorders and that kind of thing as well. So we will link the number for the Butterfly Foundation, which is a really great resource if you are feeling like you're struggling yourself with some form of eating disorder, small or large. Make sure you reach out and get the help you need, because that is the most important thing at the end of the day. As Katie said, we're here to provide general information, stories, little bits of inspiration, mindset tips. But if something feels like it is weighing you down or it's taking up a lot of your brain space, then go ahead and reach out to support, because it's the best thing you can do for yourself.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about self-sabotaging cycles. What are they? Could you explain maybe? Do you have any examples of self-sabotaging cycles that people might relate to?
Yeah, I think first of all, it would be great to kind of unpack like a definition of self-sabotage. And this is by no means from a dictionary, but it is an unconscious or conscious act that undermines a person's progress toward their goal. And I think it's really important to note that sometimes it's unconscious and sometimes it's conscious. And the behaviors that you kind of see in self-sabotage fall into three kind of behavioral patterns. And that is procrastination, perfectionism, and self-medication. So if you look at what might be a conscious thing in regards to an act that might undermine your progress. So a conscious act might be, like you said, we talk about nutrition on this, and some people might be trying to lose some body fat, and they consciously, for whatever reason, go and eat a whole tub of ice cream, knowing that that may completely blow out their calorie targets or macro targets for that day. And they know that, like, it's a fairly clear pattern that eating a tub of ice cream is not necessarily a balanced way of eating, which is the principles that BBM teaches. But an unconscious act might be, like if you're looking in that first category of procrastination, that's kind of where you start to see some of those unconscious habits. And so when you're talking about procrastination, it can stem from things like fear of failure, but also fear of success. Okay, so I want to give something outside of the nutrition and wellness space, but some people may be able to really relate to this. So think of that job promotion that might be coming up in your life, and you really want to go for it, but you're so frightened that by putting your hat in the ring, you might fail, that you procrastinate and focus on so many other tasks instead of writing that job application to put your hat in the ring, that the deadline passes. And so even though you might have a goal to have that promotion, and you may have named it up, I want to be a team leader at my work, or I want to do this, it might be the fear of failure that you are not meritorious in that process. Or it might actually be, what if I get the job and I don't know what to do because I've never done it before? So I think that's one of the key things, like in regards to an example about procrastination.
And that's like subconsciously procrastinating,
Yeah,
right?
like,
because you know in your heart of hearts that you want to get this job, and like that's the goal and you're trying. But, and then, you know, you saying you feel so frightened about success, like, I don't believe that about myself, but I know that I do that sometimes, and that is the real reason.
Yeah.
But like, so it's hard to know if like that's why you're procrastinating. Like, how do you even figure out if you have this fear of success or you have this fear of failure? Like, yeah, that's really tough.
And I think you have to, like, apart from going to therapy.
Yes. Number one, go to therapy.
You know, there are various strategies that we can talk through the podcast as we go about strategies for, you know, how to cope with or manage self-sabotage behaviors. And I'm truly yet to meet anyone that has never self-sabotaged themselves in regards to something. But if we talk about, so that's an example of procrastination. The second behavior pattern that I talked about was perfectionism. And that's that really, I must be good. I have to be enough. I have to get this perfect. I can't make a mistake. It's that real mentality that becomes really obsessive. And the issue that happens with perfectionism is that it actually instigates the same fight or flight response in your body in terms of stress, which then really narrows your cognition to focus entirely on the task that you're supposed to be doing. And then it forgoes potentially the focus on the other things in your life that may be quite life affirming, that you do, that bring you much joy and happiness, and you're focusing on this one task. So whether or not it might be that you're so, in terms of the BBM space, you're so focused on hitting your macros perfectly that you forgo having the opportunity to spend time with friends when you go out for dinner.
Yes.
And something that brings you such joy. When actually what BBM's trying to teach people is that this is about balance and flow and fluidity and all of that kind of stuff, so that sometimes we'll hit macros, sometimes we won't.
Yeah.
But when we have a standard within ourselves where we expect such perfectionism, and that can stem right back to childhood. You could have been raised in a really low warmth, high criticism house. Or you could be in a relationship where there is a lot of insults or derogatory comments, or you're so stupid, why did you do that? Those kind of things. And you may not even know where some of those kind of thoughts have come from. And really the importance isn't so much on knowing where they're coming from. It's about picking up the language that you're using internally, because what happens for some people when they're raised in homes or they're in relationships which aren't healthy, or they're not fostering healthy relationships, is that we can start then adopting that same language and that same internal narrative towards ourselves.
Yep.
And no one else is necessarily even saying it. You might have left that relationship, or you may, your parents may have, changed their ways. Like, there is no manual on parenting. So we do things right sometimes and not right other times. And so I think sometimes you may have found yourself in that, but you're still carrying that narrative in yourself, and you apply it to the things that you're trying to do in your own life.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Super interesting. So when you notice that you are doing something that is a bit of a cycle, start to hone in on what kind of language internally you may be using, and maybe focus on that a little bit. And then how do we know then once we've figured out that we're in a self-sabotaging cycle, whether it be subconscious or conscious, how to break through?
Yeah, and I think with the example of perfectionism, just asking yourself a question about, how is this behavior serving me to have an overall goal? Or would I, if I was, 90 years of age, would I have thought that, busting my gut to perfect that cake that I was making for my child's birthday, because I was really just trying to prove to the other mums that I am enough and that I am a good enough parent, and look at the magical cake, when the child might be 2 and doesn't give a hoot about really what the cake looks like. They just want to get it in their gob.
Yeah.
I think we really can start to check in internally with how important is the art of perfectionism for us in our own lives, and what's the cost? Does the cost outweigh the benefit that we might be getting by striving for perfection? Because a lot of people experience a sense of relief when they achieve whatever they're striving for, but not necessarily pride. Because they're just relieved that they got over the finish line and that they've done it, rather than getting a sense of, oh my God, that was amazing. I'm so proud of myself. Look at the cake. It's not true. It's not about that. It was about them showing I'm enough. And if you didn't get enough compliments about the cake, then it's like, well, do I have to up the ante next year?
So true.
And, my little mantra, as I always say through BBM, is progress over perfection,
Yeah.
don't rush your journey, you know, all this kind of stuff. It's because I really believe that a lot of us, and we're great at goal setting here, but I think a lot of us focus on that big goal, and we should be focusing over process over the end product. Like finding joy in the moments of creating the daily habits that we are, rather than it being about losing 5 kilos at the end of the challenge because we hit our macros every single day. If we learnt new recipes and we got excited about the culture and community that was happening and that we were surrounding ourselves with, we've made friends.
Yeah. I think people definitely get very overly obsessed with the end goal. But when you really think about what the end goal is, it's like, is it a day that you're going to get to? And then you're like, okay, for example, if your goal is lose 5 kilos and you get to the end of the challenge, you lose 5 kilos and it's like, then what?
Yeah.
Then what? What happens from day to day?
Yeah.
Like, there is so much beauty in the journey, and the whole idea is that you have a container to build your perfect, balanced lifestyle that will suit you for that stage of life that you're in. And then life will throw a curveball, life will throw a new challenge, and then you rebuild and restructure your lifestyle again so that you can keep going. So I definitely feel like people do get wound up and caught up on the end goal, that, you know, how do they even know when they're there? And that is a fleeting moment. And, you know, we really do need to be focused on the journey being the entire thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
And I think from your perspective, it's slightly different because you're doing nutrition coaching as well. So it's important in terms of like the actual science of like nutrition planning and all of that, that you are ensuring that they have got their macro allocation correct and stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, that doesn't have to worry about any of that stuff. I just think I would rather hear from people instead of a number on the scales. I would rather hear from them what an amazing or perfect day would look like when they achieve their goal. Is that they can run with more freedom, or they can race their kid along the beach, or what are they adding to their life by striving for that? Because don't get me wrong, there is no shame in striving. It's just whether or not it's healthy or unbalanced.
Yeah.
So I think we should strive, and stress in itself, you know, and you and I've done a big masterclass on this prior to Christmas, but stress in itself isn't a bad thing. It can really, you know, hone your focus, and I was very good at doing that at exams at uni. And it can fuel you, but by activating that fight-flight mechanism, it's mobilizing your body to have energy to move in a similar way than it would have, you know, historically a long time ago if you were running from a bear.
Yeah.
So it's about when you are in states of stress, and that might be because you're striving for perfection, your body is going to need a physical mobilization in order to work through that. So it might be that you do star jumps or you jog on the spot, because to regulate yourself, you're going to need to give your body a level of restoration to come back round and have some calm, rather than just being, you know, expecting your body to just know that it's time to shut off. Because I think we stay in much longer periods of prolonged stress even after the initial threat may have passed.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about people not necessarily having that sense of pride, because they're caught up in the relief of just trying to get there. And how much do we forgo and self-sabotage our overall joy in striving for that one narrowed cognition and focus on one thing? There are so many other life-affirming things for you.
One thing I always say is, don't deprive yourself of happiness on the journey to happiness.
Absolutely.
You know, so if you're struggling right now and you decide to join a nutrition and fitness program like BBM's, and you go, okay, I'm really going to focus in on trying to look after myself so that I can feel happier and I can feel energized. And then, yes, you start saying no to social events because you become really focused on hitting your macros, and it's really harder to hit your macros when you go out with friends.
Yeah.
I really think when it comes to that, you need to be focused on the journey. You need to be focused on what brings you happiness and try to foster that in healthy ways, like throughout the week. And I think being balanced really means being okay with moments of imbalance and knowing that this is just like a moment in my journey, just a moment in my life, and it's not worth sort of getting upset over. It's just about trying to create a comfortable balance between, you know, all of the things that we do in our lives that make us happy and make us healthy.
Yeah.
So we've talked about perfectionism. What was the first one again?
Procrastination. So we talked about those kind of behaviors where you look at everything but that, and then you kind of will be like, oh, the deadline's passed. Oh, it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't for me this time. Whereas that it was actually your own behaviors that were undermining your ability to progress towards your goals.
Yeah.
And then you've got self-medicating, which is probably actually the ones that people think of when they think of self-sabotage, particularly in the nutrition space. Like they might think of, you know, the example I gave in the conscious act of eating a whole tub of ice cream in one sitting. But it's not just that. It might be around other substances such as alcohol, gambling, drugs, food, but also the use of social media.
Yeah, scrolling
To escape their current state.
Yeah.
And then it sabotages whatever they might or should have been doing or wanted to do that's going to move them towards their goal.
Yeah.
Because they're using it as a model of escapism.
Yeah.
You know, or just general withdrawal. So like you'll see people in high states of withdrawal, they'll start to no longer accept the dinner invitations out, or they will use their phones, or they'll be trying to escape situations in terms of being more withdrawn. And I think it's important to understand that self-medicating, I think, is probably more utilised by our phones and YouTube and TikTok and Reels and those quick grabs of attention then we probably, you know, we automatically go to the food and the drugs and the alcohol. But I actually think there's probably a greater issue with us using escapism as a mechanism of self-sabotage. And I think that is one of those unconscious acts. You're not going, I am in a high state of stress right now. I am going to pick up my phone and I am going to withdraw. You are not that cognitive or conscious about it. But it's getting you a dopamine hit, so I need to feel good. And this constant search, I think, sometimes to feel good. Like us as humans, we are designed to do hard things. So it's about not always trying to avoid that experience of discomfort.
Yeah.
Like that's where we develop resilience. That's where, you know, we look at gym, and you'd be able to explain this better than I am because you're a PT, but you know, the muscles breaking down and then rebuilding and
that's
stuff.
How it works.
Like it happens through resistance, you know, and it's uncomfortable sometimes. You're pushing yourself to the limit, and I think we utilize self-medicating in all forms, whether it's TV or whatever, to try and escape.
Yeah. I wonder, like, just sitting in those uncomfortable feelings, what that would bring up. Because I know for me, for sure, like at the end of the day, my day looks like doing things like this, what we're doing, sitting on the computer. I do a lot of social media, a lot of talking to people all day, like in the Facebook group and DMs and all that. So I'm always on my phone all day anyway. And then it gets to the after dinner and I'm like, I've done my day, and I sit down and I start scrolling as a way to not have to be my normal self and not have to be the one who is holding the conversation or talking or
even holding space,
holding any space. Like, so like because I automatically do that most nights, whether that's that or I put on a movie. Last night I did a bit of both.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be interested in myself to try, like just seeing what happens if I did just like sit in that feeling of.
And if I asked you to describe what a perfect day looked like for you in the future, and that's ultimately, you know, we're striving for these moments and these, you know, periods of perfection in not being perfectionistic, you wouldn't mention your phone once.
No.
You know, like if I asked you to describe from 6 a.m. waking in the morning to like 10 o'clock at night going to bed, I can guarantee you that that wouldn't be a behavior that you'd want to see. And I don't necessarily think that engaging in like watching a movie with your partner is a bad thing, because it's the sense of doing it together that's connecting.
Yeah.
And that's important. And that would probably be, I know from how you've spoken to me about your relationship with Jack, that connection is very important. So it's not that you have to be gazing into each other's eyes 24 hours a day and being like, I'm so present with you and I don't want to escape at all.
Yeah.
But it is about having those moments of connection so that it's still something together, as opposed to I'm withdrawing into myself and this is about me time and I can't hold space for you, because it's about probably looking at the balance of your day.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like last night, Jack went and he's like, oh, I'm going to go play PlayStation. He hasn't done it in ages. It's not even in the cabinet. It's like over in the house. So he like went over there and played PlayStation, and I just literally scrolled on my phone and watched videos about microphone setups for podcasts.
It's important.
Hope it sounds okay, guys. I'm still figuring it out. But yeah, so he went and did that and I did that, and yeah, I feel like, why do I feel like that me scrolling and that kind of thing? Why is that me switching off and not holding space? Why is me just not being and talking to Jack and just sitting with a glass of soda water and lime and just looking out the window, just chatting, playing with Sunny? Surely that's more so me not holding space for anyone. Surely that's more time for me recover from the day, you know? Like, yeah, it's just it's a tricky one. I'd love to like experiment more with that.
Yeah, and I don't think, as we don't label foods as good or bad, I think it's really important that we don't rule phone use as bad. I mean, you were still doing professional development by learning about mic setups and stuff. Like, it's still enriching you to get to, you know, the objective that you want to get, which is a really clear sounding podcast so that you can reach the masses. But it's about, is that the routine that you want to have for yourself to allow yourself to be the most refreshed person the next morning? Because if that is your wind down time, you're actually still amping yourself up. Like, you're still growing, you're still learning, you know, and that's amazing. But that space was probably about your time of having some unwind, regulating your central nervous system, going into your parasympathetic.
Yeah, and to be honest, like my hectic brain would definitely gets overstimulated scrolling, because I'm like, oh, that idea. I even like, it's like 8:30 p.m. I like called Dad. I'm like, Dad, when people wear headphones during podcasts, why do they do that? You know, like I've even had that thought. Now I'm like learning more, and it's about work, and you know, why not? Oh, he told me the reason why, by the way.
Well, you might as well share it now.
It's only something you need to do if you are in a separate room as the person you're recording with.
Okay. Well, we're together as one.
But because we're together, we don't have to wear them.
Yeah.
I was like, cool, thanks. So yeah, I feel like my brain really does need the reprieve. So, and like last night I found it really hard to fall asleep. I was awake for ages. And then I was like, God damn, like this morning I went to ride and my brain was like quite fuzzy. I don't feel that clear today. So I feel like, yeah, when I look at my lifestyle and I look at my nighttime routine, that's definitely something I want to change a little bit.
Yeah, which perfectly segues into one of the points that I wanted to talk about today, and that's to really look at whether your self-care is still striving. Like, are you in your moments of, like, some people might be like, I go for a run for my mental health, and that's really a great way for me to regulate myself. But are you looking at your watch and checking your times? Like, are you still striving in that period of self-care? My advice to someone, if you're genuinely, authentically doing a behavior for self-care, then take the watch off.
Yeah.
Just run till you want to run.
Yeah.
And then turn around, because it's not about reaching a goal.
Yeah.
And your self-care, like when we look at your daily habits, maybe it's not about labeling anything as good or bad. It's just about you going, that kind of invigorating material for me, which stimulates me, that's not the time I can then schedule that.
Yep.
Because I'm going to feel sleep deprived, or I'm going to find it hard to unwind. And just ensuring that your self-care routines are actually bringing you back down, so you actually don't end up having some perfectionism around your self-care.
So
as
true.
well.
That's why none of us trainers wear like fitness trackers when we do ride classes. When we teach and when we go to classes, like I don't wear my watch, always take it off. Number one, because if it lights up in the room, I'm like, oh, that's distracting. But number two, because it's not about calories burned during a class. It's not about any of that kind of thing. It's just a self-care practice. And I think that's a really important thing. Maybe some people want to wear their watches when they are running and trying to increase their speed and all that kind of stuff. And that's awesome. I love using Strava and following that with running. But for me, my self-care is exercise. Like that's my self-care. Ride classes are my self-care for that. So that's an interesting one.
And that goes back to that process over end product stuff. You're enjoying the process of being present in a ride class, and that's what it is for you, and that's the objective. That's the outcome. That's where the joy is for you.
Yeah.
You know, another strategy would be about, in terms of self-sabotage and how you can start kind of bringing yourself back to a healthier balance, so where you're not getting in your own way. And I do think self-sabotage sounds quite judgy. So when I'm normally talking about it, whether it's with, clients or whatever, I talk to them about the fact of sometimes we have to get out of our own way to be able to get to where we want to be. And then it's understanding that no one else is holding us back except ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we could just swap from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, where we're really looking at the fact that everything we do is an opportunity to learn and to grow, and that we don't have to nail it, then you will get so much more joy out of the process. And then you can start to avoid that procrastination, because if we're talking about the example of the job interview, if you're viewing it from a growth mindset, it's just a great opportunity to practice my interviewing skills if my application got me an interview. And it doesn't really matter what the outcome is, because what it might achieve is the fact that they, one, might know that I'm interested in a promotion at a later time. B, I will have a practice, of being able to do an interview. And C, I might be meritorious along with other people. I may not be the one picked, but if there's a backfill opportunity later, they might slot me straight in. So it's understanding that it's an experience of learning and growth, as opposed to having the end goal as, and that can then shift into moving away from perfectionistic kind of behavior where you have to get it right. Because if it's just a process and we just understand that setbacks are just a part of life, and they teach us something every time, then that's the gold. That's the gold in the process.
Totally. I have one more topic I wanted to talk to you about. We're almost at that time where we need to wrap up. We could talk all day, you and I. We've always said that. But if you guys want a 2-hour podcast, let us know. We can do that. I wanted to talk about another area of self-sabotage, which is people pleasing, fear of judgment, and sometimes the fact that people can get triggered by your efforts to better yourself, and then because you think other people are judging you, or they're triggered by you talking about your health, whether you're losing weight, whether you're increasing your fitness, focusing on whatever, changing your diet, and then that stops you from going to that next level or actually following that path. Do you see that happen where people have that fear of judgment about what other people think about them?
Oh, absolutely. I've experienced it before. Like, whenever you do something new, which is different. So when I joined BBM, I thought that people would look at it and go, well, she's skinnish. What does she need? Like, why does she need a nutrition program? She should just know what to do. And it wasn't for me about losing a mass amount of weight. Like you said, I had a bit of a transformation, but it was 3 kilos on the scales.
Yep.
I think me starting a running journey, you could think, well, why can't she just go out and run 5Ks? Like, I could spend time thinking about what it might be triggering for someone else. And I think what's a really good position if you do get some commentary. So lots of people will quite often get some feedback like, why are you doing that? Or
you don't need that.
Yeah, that means that you can't ever drink.
Oh, you doing that? That seems a bit obsessive.
Yeah. So I think you can get that dialogue and narrative from people. And I think if you can, first of all, in the first moment, adopt compassion and curiosity with that person instead of taking it personally and understand that that is something that is going on for them, nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
But if you can stand in that space of compassion and think, I wonder what's happening for them right now, I think you'll be less defensive about it and you'll also take it less personally. True. And you can just say, that's really interesting. Like, that's really interesting that that's your perspective. I think this will be really good for me, without having to immediately go into a monologue of defending your decisions.
Yeah.
But I think
that's the first thing people do.
Yeah. And I just think compassion and curiosity, ask them more about why they think that.
Yeah.
True. What's that about? And
Sunny, get back from the microphone. Darling, you're just licking your chops right in the mic.
I don't even
Sunny,
have any
darling.
treats or anything. So
darling, where's your croissant?
Should I withdraw my pats? Like...
Well, yes, because your pats are making him just cuddle up to you and lick his chops by the microphone.
He just turned around like
Sunny,
really hurt that I withdrew the pats. Yeah, so I think
sorry to interrupt you.
Curiosity is really important without defensiveness and compassion that this may be bringing something up for someone else that has nothing to do with you is really important because you actually may be able to explore that further with like what's actually going on for them, and suddenly the conversation that was about you has nothing to do with you. Totally. And you've actually been able to support someone through something that they were feeling really uncomfortable about. Yeah,
and you need to have a bubble around you that other people cannot penetrate with their judgments and opinions. You really need to just let it ricochet off and think, if my attempt to better myself is triggering you, that's on you, but we can't let that hold us back from our own potential and living our own lives in the way that we want to.
And you can actually ask that question. So if people are coming at you with like a lot of invasive questions, you can just ask them the question, what is it about me doing BBM, or what is it about me starting to run, or what is it about me learning how to create a more balanced meal that's triggering for you? Just ask it.
Yeah.
Like it can be really calm. It doesn't have to start an argument, but just a real curiosity around what is this about? Because one, they don't want to answer it. It'll stop them asking again, and you'll be able to go along your merry way without continually having to justify your decisions.
Yep. Or feel worried about sharing stuff, or you feel like you have to hide what you're doing in front of that person. That's not good either. Yeah.
No, they might not come out and say, actually, I'm finding this, really triggering because I've always wanted to do this and I don't feel like I can do it. And that fear of failure and the fear of shame and I'm not good enough and all of that kind of stuff might come up for them. Very easy to have compassion for someone when they're vulnerable, but not everyone will find that space, but it might create them with a window of reflection for themselves later.
Totally, which I think is a win-win for everyone. So thank you so much for all of your insights in today's potty. As I said, we could keep going and do a 2-hour podcast episode maybe another time. But just want to say thank you.
You're
Thanks for everything
welcome.
you're doing. Thank you for being on the podcast, coming up to the cabin, patting Sonny with his
I've
croissant.
got more pets coming.
Beautiful. We're about to switch off, guys, and have ourselves a little snack plate, a balanced and nourishing snack plate. We've got some chicken, some like berries, we've got some cheese, we've got some chocolate, carrots, cucumber.
Love it.
The perfect lunch.
I didn't even know that this was on the agenda, but you know, you didn't even have to lure me out to the cabin, but I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Well, thanks, my darling. If anyone wants to catch you on your socials, where should they follow you?
Body by Madison, coach.katie.
Yes. So my Instagram is Body by Madison Coach, and Katie's is the same with .Katie at the end.
Katie.
Katie. That's what you said. Yeah.
I was just talking to Mads about the fact that it's really important that we vocalize our internal narratives. So when we're engaging in that negative self-limiting beliefs and talking to ourselves and saying some pretty nasty things about what we're not capable of doing, I think vocalizing that and having a community to really be able to talk to that and have that challenged. Like actually, if you don't have a community, I would ask you to ask yourself the question of what evidence do I have that actually proves that this is true? But even better so, if you can have a community of women or people or, you know, safe connections that can really be able to support you and challenge those internal narratives that are not true and they're self-limiting and call them out, then that's amazing. And that's what I see in the BBM community, where you will put up, or someone will put up a vulnerable post and say, you know, I've had this kind of internal dialogue going on all day, or I feel really bad about myself because I said I was going to go for a run and I didn't go for a run. And you will see the entire community jump in defense of you to challenge those self-sabotage messaging that you're giving yourself. And sometimes we need that modeled for us over and over and over again before we can do it ourselves and catch ourselves and start doing that self-challenging and asking ourselves, where is the evidence of this? And I think community is so essential, and we need that so that we can have that mentoring and modeling for ourselves.
Totally. Join us. Join the waitlist for the next challenge happening in April. Waitlist is in the link in the show notes and also on both mine and Katie's Instagram accounts. Sunny, don't lick your butt. I'm going to name up my self-sabotaging behaviour.
Okay.
It is self-medicating with scrolling at the end of the evening. Sunny, no. Sorry, he's got a cut on his leg, so I just don't want him to.
It's okay.
It is self-medicating with scrolling when I actually need to rest my brain.
Yeah.
I don't know why I do it, what purpose is behind it, but that's mine that I'm naming up, and I'll even talk about this in the Facebook group with the girls and we can support each other. But yeah, I love that idea to name it up and then find a community. So
and create a different habit to replace it.
Yes. Do you have one?
A different habit?
A self-sabotaging cycle that you know about?
Perfectionism.
Perfectionism, yeah.
I expect a lot of myself, and I have to do the internal why. Like, why are you doing this? What is this about? Yeah, I remember talking to you about a particular masterclass that I was about to deliver and my internet went down, and I was really quite agitated because I wanted it to be perfect for everyone. I wanted their time to be valued by them showing up for the masterclass. But ultimately it came down to that I wanted to be enough.
Yeah.
In that moment for those girls to make it worth their while. And I had to say, I'm enough. Even if the internet doesn't work, we will find a way. 100%. And we did.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And you are enough. You are more than enough always. Okay, we're really going this time.
Okay. Goodbye.
Love you all.
Until next time.
Bye. See you in 2 seconds when we come back. Bye. Just kidding. Bye. Beautiful. Thank you, my loves. Hope you enjoyed listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.